What up, y'all? Today I'm talking about Vertigo, the newest album from Tilian. Just dropped 10 days ago as of the time of recording this. But yeah, I feel like I've had enough time to really digest everything that's going on with it and formulate some final thoughts on the stronger points, the weaker points, and just the things that I liked about it or not necessarily disliked, but things that kind of left me wanting a little more. I think Bad Advice does a pretty good job of encapsulating the whole vibe of the album. And that kind of speaks to the fact that I think this album, more than Factory Reset, feels like a uniform, piece with a singular vision all the way through, whereas Factory Reset kind of had a couple different vibes throughout, which, I loved. I thought it was a great album. Factory Reset was really good. But I think this one just kind of had a more holistic feel to it, which I did appreciate. Kind of kept the same vibe all the way through with some, hints of other things thrown in there. But like I said, I do feel like it was definitely stronger in the first half, specifically those first 4 tracks, I want to say, 5 tracks. And that's not to say that the second half of the album didn't have some high points or, some catchy tunes in there. Like, it definitely did. But I find myself more excited to listen to the first couple songs on the album than I do the later half. Yeah, and personally, I would say that Imitation is my favorite song on the album. For me, that's the one that kind of hits the best in terms of lyrics, melodies, and instrumental all wrapped into one. I feel like the instrumentals on this one were a little bit lackluster in general. There are definitely certain parts of a few different songs that really sound awesome. Specifically, like the bridge in Imitation or the intro into Savages, and even the outro of Savages, or like, I don't know if it's an outro, but like that ending basically. And the thing I love about Savages specifically is how Tilian leans into those unclean vocals like right at the end. And I do like the fact that he's very sparing when he does do any sort of unclean vocals. You don't really get that from any other song in the album. And although Savages is, I think it's fine. I do really love the beginning and the end of that song. I like how it kind of leans into a little bit of a heavy influence for Tilian. And I think that's where most of the instrumentals actually shine the most, when it leans into the guitars and it comes in real heavy with a riff that just kind of chugs along under Tilian. In the second half of the album, I do think Recover and the closer, Vertigo, are probably the stronger two. And that's not to say that, Come Alive or Inner Child don't have fun little melodies to sing along to. I just think that those 2 songs are probably the strongest in the later half of the album. Just a really nice callback to those early influences and like the emo rock, not quite post-hardcore, but just knocking on the door feeling that Dreamhouse gave me back when I first heard it as a teenager. So this album just felt like a renewal of that version of Tilian. Um, and, you know, lyrically, I feel like it was pretty on par with, you know, his previous solo work. You know, the lyrics are involved enough to kind of tell a story with each song, which I always appreciate. I'm big on lyrics. And I think, you know, Tilian's just a really talented songwriter in general. Um, and, you know, his voice, he's always on point with that. So, you know, there's not much to say with that. Again, I really do like when he leans into those grittier vocals and the unclean stuff. I think it's like a different side of him that doesn't really show up in anything else aside from, you know, some brief glimpses on Afterburner with Dance Gavin Dance. So it's just kind of cool to see him kind of sprinkle that in there from time to time. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good album. I think it's another solid entry into Tilian's solo discography. Gets me really excited for, you know, his first release with the new band, which I've definitely been looking forward to ever since he left DGD. So I'm, you know, just really curious to see where things go from now, as it'll probably be another 3 to 4 years before he gets another solo project out, especially because I can imagine he's going to want to dedicate a lot of time to the new band once they're, you know, in full swing. So, yeah, I think this is definitely something worth chewing on. If you're a fan of Tilians or, you know, post-hardcore or emo rock, whatever, I think there's something in there that you could get out of it and enjoy. So, yeah, those are just my thoughts. Let me know if you disagree, what you might agree with, and see you next time.